Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at SolidWorks 2020 and Exercise 7. Exercise 7 deals with a fan that you would see for what they call muffin, a grill that would go on a muffin fan. And here you could see, hopefully it's focusing in on there, it's a little grill that would go on a fan that you might see on a computer or a heat sink that would go inside of a computer. The one we're going to build is, I'm just using very large sizes just to make it easy to input the numbers and remember them. But this is basically our goal today, is to create this. Now, when I was tasked with this back in 1997, I went out to a company that they actually made medical equipment, and they needed one of these little grills designed. Not that they actually made these in-house, they actually ordered them from some other place, but just for their assemblies, they wanted it. And they showed it to me, and I kind of like, wow, really? You brought me all the way out here to figure out a way to build this. And they're like, well, look closely. And so I looked very closely at the little foot pads here where the screws would go in, the mounting. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a wire that's bent in 3 different axes, multiple axes. So that was the tough part. The rest of it really isn't so bad. So what we're going to do with this exercise, I'm going to go through and just start off with the toughest part. We're just going to build that little segment. That's where I used to stop, and I used to tell my students, okay, now I want you to build the rest of it, because it really isn't that challenging. It's just revolve features and such. But I would notice that students would spend quite a bit of time, and they would actually learn a lot too on how to build something like that. But I'm going to show you some best practices that I found over the years to make this ring pretty easily and with very few features. As you can see in the feature tree over here, there's not a whole lot to this. There's a couple mirrors, there's a couple sweeps, there's a revolve. So if we could keep the features down to a minimum, we could build it very efficiently. And this is an advanced lesson, I would say. Like I said, a company that had multiple engineers who had been using SolidWorks for some time needed to know how to make that. So we're going to see it. Now, other applications for this, other than just this little grill. Imagine making a, any sort of tubing that has to be bent, like for example, inside of an automobile, maybe tubing for the different systems, hydraulic systems, pneumatic systems, exhaust. So it's very good. Now, another tool that might typically be used for this would be the 3D Sketch, which is under Sketch, and you see there's 3D Sketch. Now, it can be done in 3D Sketch, and I tried it. I actually found the method I'm about to show you a little bit more straightforward. With the 3D Sketch, it was a bit of a challenge, but there's ways to do it either way. But I thought this is a very nice, interesting method I'm going to show you, where you could just draw a front and a right profile of that bend, and then SolidWorks will combine the two to make a 3D guide curve that you can follow. And once we're done, though, with this lesson, one of the labs, which isn't in the book, by the way, that we're going to cover, is making like a tubular chair. And we're just going to, very basic, we're going to use the 3D Sketch tool, because the 3D Sketch tool is very important to know. If any of you are looking to get certified SolidWorks professional, for example, you're going to need to know how to use that. And so we're going to go through that. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. Now you can see with this model, you just turn off integrated preview here. But our strategy, and by the way, this is the rollback bar on the model tree here. I'm going to just drag this up. We're going to start off with developing the 3D curve from 2 sketches. And actually, I have perspective on, so let me turn off perspective. And let's go to front. We're going to start by drawing the front profile that you see here. And then we're going to draw the right profile. So that's going to be on the right plane that you see there. That has the bend on it. It's almost like it's the tool that you would bend the wire on to form it that we're developing. With just sketches, we don't have to make a solid or a surface or anything like that. And then we're going to use the curve tool to combine those to make that 3D curve that we'll use later for a sweep. And then you'll see we'll sweep that along, and then we'll end up with this. And as you can see, the sketch that's contained in here is just a circle. and then it's swept along the actual guide curve that's internally. You see that in orange right there. Now the next sweep we're going to do is to extend it out. Now some students have asked, like, why didn't you just do that all in one shot? We could have, but I like how we build it in a very small chunk that's more digestible. If you want, you could build this all in one shot, yes. But what we do is we extend that out, and then this sketch for this sweep is a little basic. It's 7 inches, and then we have this 45-degree hook. And the reason for that, we're going to mirror it across, so 45 and 45 makes 90. So you end up with a elbow, 90 degrees, and it mirrored over the little wire on the other side there. Then we're going to use a revolve tool, and we're going to revolve this. Now, a lot of students that I used to have do this would revolve a full 360, and then they would go ahead and they would make a pattern. Well, rather than pattern, or I should say, circular pattern, rather than doing that, the strategy I used here, get rid of the pattern. You don't even need it. What you do is you just revolve 135 degrees on one side and 45 degrees on the other, because right here is where the sketch is going to be contained for that. Here's the sketch with the multiple circles that are going to be revolved around the center right here. And so 135 and 145 makes 180 degrees. So it gives you exactly 1/2. And then you just mirror it across, and you use one of those little flat ends of the revolve to mirror that. So that's the strategy we're going to look at today. And there's a dozen ways you could do this. This is just one method. So let's begin. Start off with a new part file. Select the front plane, start a sketch, and go to the line tool, and right at the origin, drag up a vertical line about 1 inch, and then go over here to the center point arc tool. Hover above your line so you get the line of inference, and you're maybe about a 1/2 or 3/4 of an inch above it. You don't really have to measure it. We'll put dimensions in a moment. Click, release the mouse button, and connect directly to the vertex of the line that you just drew a moment ago. Click again, rotate it counterclockwise around, and then get over to this side, and A should be about 300 to 330, around there. Again, we're just getting it close. Click and hit escape. Now what we need to do is we need to align that center. You could do that with drawing a center line from this point to this point, or we could use a relationship, and that's what I'm going to choose to do. So I'm going to hit the F key first to zoom up so you can see this. Now make sure you hit escape a couple times. Control, so hold down the control key, don't let it go. Select this line, and then select the center point. And over on the left, you should see coincident. Now, some people are thinking, well, shouldn't it be vertical? If we selected the endpoint, or the vertex down below, then yeah, but coincident, it looks at that line as if it's infinite, and it's just aligning itself to it. So we now have applied that relationship, so it can't sway left or right. Now we could go to Smart Dimension, click on the bottom origin, and click on the center point of the arc, drag it to the right, click. This is going to be 4 inches. Click on this arc here, drag it up to the upper right, 1.5 inches. And now here's a little trick, and those of you who are in class, if you could remember this, I'll be really impressed. We want to go ahead and put in an angle for the opening here. And here's the trick, it's 3 points, and it's the only 3 points that are there. 1, 2, and then the center point. Click, and that's 3. Drag it between the opening there, click to release it, and type in 15 degrees. So that's one method. Interesting, I had another method pop up someone knew of, holding, it's a key, I can't remember, but last time I did this lesson and I posted it, someone had said there's another method too. There's a very old way where you actually drew center lines and you just dimension the center line. So you could do that too. And that actually, for a lot of my students, they seem to find that actually easier sometimes than remembering these 3 points. But anyhow, Now that we have that, we need to put a bend in here at this corner. So go to the sketch, fillet. And the entities to fillet, first of all, let's set this to 1 inch. And select this corner right here. And hit the green check. And there's the bend. All right, that's done. Hit rebuild or exit sketch, either one is fine. Gets you out of it. Should turn gray, the dimensions disappear if you click on the screen, and you're in good shape. Now we need to create a separate sketch that's perpendicular on the right plane for the bend that's going to take place. So let's select the right plane, start a sketch. You're going to have to hit the space bar or use your fast keys like Control 4 to go to the right view orientation. Now take your line tool, get down at the bottom, click when you get the origin, the little orange, circle it, drag this up about 1.25 inches, almost 1.5 inches. Make sure it's vertical. Click. Drag off to the right a 1-inch line at like around a 45-degree angle or so. Click. Now drag a line straight up and try and match the line to the left of it so it's about the same height. Click. And then hit escape. Let's go to Smart Dimension. Dimension this line right here. Click over here, and that's going to be 3. Now what we're going to do is that's eventually going to have a bend in it, and we might want to dimension this on a print. So it's a good idea to say, like, eventually this is going to be a theoretical sharp corner once the bend or the fillet is put in. And so that dimension, you want someone to be able to understand what it is. So over here on the left, where we have dim text or dimension text, click underneath there, hit enter, and TSC. So theoretical sharp corner. And that's preemptive. So click on that. All right, now let's go ahead and go make sure Smart Dimension is on. Click on this angled line and then click on this vertical line on the left and get in between. That's going to be 130 degrees. Now click on this line here and drag it straight up. Now it's weird, the dimension doesn't center it on this one, so that's okay. And I know I've been touting, like, make sure your dimension center. Once you put it in, it will. So go ahead and click right about there. That needs to be 1 inch. You could drag that up like so. All right, there's one more dimension, and this one's the toughest one. The trick is click on this corner down below here, and now hit your left arrow key on your keyboard just one time, and you'll see now you're seeing the actual front view sketch, and you're just dimensioning to the center point of that. So click on that, drag it over here, center it, click, type in 2, and then over here again, hit enter TSC. Now, not all companies require you to do that. Where I came from, we used to have to do that just so someone would know. There's other methods too. I don't think that's an ANSI standard by any stretch of the imagination, but where I used to work, they used to want us to do it that way. So if you're not required to do it, don't worry about it. But anyhow, all right, now we have those. We have our bent wire. Now we need to put the radiuses or fillets in it. So go to Sketch Fillet, and it should keep it at 1 inch. You could go ahead and select this one right here and this corner here and hit the green check. Now you'll notice since they were done at the same time, there's only one, and you should note that on the drawing so that someone knows that both are 1 inch. And so over, hit the green check mark on there. Now click on, not on the actual number, but click on the extension line of the radius. And over to the left here, hit the little arrow to the right. Now, the ANSI standard, you could put 2x or x2 for times 2. Again, I like putting in 2 PLCS period for places. Where I used to work, we used to do it that way, but that is not an ANSI standard. Use the standard that your company is familiar with. Now that we have that done, go ahead and hit rebuild or exit sketch. Either one's fine. And if you rotate this around, you can see both sketches laying on top of each other. Now we could go to insert up at the top, go to curve. Now, by the way, if you don't see insert, it's just because you don't have this tacked in. You have to hit this little arrow here and then insert and curve. But I'm going to tack mine in. I like to have that. Insert, curve, projected. Now, notice you have sketch on the face or sketch on the sketch. That's one of the really neat things SolidWorks has is you don't need to, in some systems, you actually have to extrude the surface or some sort of model and then project it on top. SolidWorks cuts out that middleman. One shot, sketch on sketch. Go ahead and select geometry from both. So you can select this circle here and then maybe this line here, just as long as it's one or the other, or you could select it from the feature tree over here. You'd be able to go in and actually select both sketches. Hit the green check. Now click somewhere and you'll see the guide curve now. All right. We're going to now draw a circle that's going to sweep along there to make this. So let's select the top plane, start a sketch, go to the circle tool, and you might have to rotate this so that you could see clearly the origin. If you're looking at it from a side view, it might be very difficult to lock it in. So rotate or just go to the top view orientation. Once I get this orange dot, I'm going to click and drag this out. I'm going to go to Smart Dimension, and it's 0.5. Now you're probably thinking, wow, 0.5, that's pretty big. It is. This is a big grill compared to what this is. I didn't want to go and measure all this, so I just went ahead and I just scaled it very large with simple dimensions that are easy to remember, so I don't always have to look at the training guide. Which reminds me, if you're trying to find where this is at or the training guide, remember you could just go to VERTAN as in UX 1. Make sure you remember the 1 on there, .com, and hit enter. And then you should be able to go to the instructional manuals, SolidWorks Basics, and it's like on page 80 or something. So anyhow. All right, so with that being said, now we could go to Features, Sweat Boss Base, select the circle, and then select the blue guide curve. And you'll see it sweep along, giving you a preview. Hit the green check. Now, for some reason, the center still stays on. So click on that and click on the little eyeball to hide it. Now, if you accidentally selected the solid model and hit it, you have to go over here, click, and then click on the eyeball to unhide it. All right, let's go ahead and select the front plane, start a sketch. The hard part is done. Let's go to the front view orientation, go to the line tool, click on here, drag this straight down. It's about 7 inches. Now, here's a little trick I'm going to show you. You notice with the line chain, you could continue on, but we need a tangent arc that's going to hook only about 45 degrees down, and it's going to be about 1 inch for the radius. Actually, a ½ inch for the radius. So here's a little trick. Rather than going all the way up to the top and finding the tangent arc tool, this is kind of neat. And if I were to hire someone and if I saw them do this, I would be applauding, because this is one of those little shortcuts. Might not seem like a lot, but it shows the level of knowledge that a person has of the software. Technical expertise is what employers are looking for. Now, hover over that point just for a second. Now, I didn't click, just drag it down and to the left. And you should get tangent arc. It automatically started that for you. So there's a lot of little tricks like that built into the software. I'm not going to show you every single one of them. There's so many of them, but that's just one little example. Now, A should be equal to about 45-ish, and then the radius, just get it close to 1. That's fine. And click, and make sure it hooks to the left a little bit. Hit Escape. Now let's go to Smart Dimension. Dimension that at 1 inch. And then remember the 3-point challenge. Click 1, 2, and on the center. Drag that to the lower right here. That's going to be 45 degrees. And finally, click on this line and make that 7. All right. Up until a few years ago, SolidWorks forced you to use a tool called Convert Entities up here. It didn't force us. It was just there weren't the options and enhancements that there are now. I still like to show it because I don't use it as much because they've done things like what you're about to see here. But convert entities is kind of like offset entities, but it's at a zero offset. So it allows you to select edges and entities, project them onto any surface, and you could use those, and they're tied back to where you selected the original projection to come from. So it's a very good tool to know about. And so I'm kind of sad that I can't show it to you right here. I could show it. We could select it and select that edge of the circle, and it would project it, and we would be able to sweep it. In earlier versions, those of you who might have a version that goes back a couple of years, you still have to do it that way. So go back and watch one of my videos from the past for exercise 7 here. However, a couple of years ago, SolidWorks always updating things, which is awesome. It's really great that they do. So it eliminated the need for this. So watch this. Let's go now to Features, Swept Boss Base. And the first thing it's looking for, look at that, the little picture is the profile. It's actually a circle. Go ahead and select that edge, and we could reuse it. Now, the next thing it's looking for is the path. Select the 7-inch line, and you'll see it sweep along. So just up until a couple years ago, you would have had to actually start a sketch on the end face of that circle, select the edge or the face of that circle, and hit Convert Entities, which would have made a black circle that you could then sweep along the path. So here's just a great example of every release SolidWorks continues, and all CAD systems always update too, just like that. But it's a very nice tool that they've enhanced on there. Hit the green check. All right, now we could go ahead and just mirror this across. So go to the mirror tool up here, and the face to mirror across will just be that little end face right there. Now make sure over here, this is very important, going to repeat it. You don't want features or faces. You could do it, but remember there's a couple features here. The easiest one would be to use bodies to mirror, and we're going to use bodies to mirror later as well, rather than selecting individual features. Saves time. So bodies to mirror, select anywhere on the body, and it's basically going to mirror everything across. Now here you can see the preview. It just gives you the topology, so it's not actually giving you the edges, but trust it, it's working. Hit the green check. And there we go, we have our 90-degree elbow. Let's move along here. Select the right plane, start a sketch, hit your space bar, go to the right view orientation, and the first thing I want you to do is get out your centerline tool. Select centerline, zoom up down here, and infer to this edge. Now it's interesting, the first time I did this earlier today when I was practicing, this didn't highlight the center point like this easily. So sometimes it's difficult. But what I did find is I just moved to the center and it found the center automatically. So sometimes things, maybe the graphics, who knows, could have had an effect on that. So as long as you can see that center cross with the circle around it, you're in good shape. Click and drag that to the left about 1.5 inches, and then hit escape. You've just now located what will be the center right here. Okay, and it's the intersection, it's the theoretical sharp corner. And then once we get to revolve around that, mirrored across, we're done. Okay, now take the circle tool and right in here draw a little tiny circle, just like that, and hit escape. Now, you could go and dimension that at 1/2 inch, but the rest of the wire is consistent throughout this. It's basically the same wire. There's no size difference. So what I would recommend doing is tying the wire for the rings to the wire that we used for the elbow. Here's how. Make sure you hit escape a couple times. Select this circle down here when you see the orange circle appear. Release it. Now hold Control and select the circle you just drew. Go over to the left here and make them equal. Now, if the design ever changes to change the wire, all of it updates. So from here, we're going to go ahead and now dimension. So go to Smart Dimension, select this, select the circle, and then select this edge. Drag this off to the right, click to drop it, and we want to make that 0.245. You might think, well, it's a 1/2 inch diameter. Why Why are you making it a little shorter? The reason is this. Now, if you want this to be a true assembly and you would just have the welds that occur in between here, however it's welded on there, that's fine. You could make these all separate. When you revolve them, it will actually not merge the bodies. And that's fine. I like to kind of merge them a little bit, so I'm dipping it in about 5/1000ths of an inch of an intersection. And if you zoom up, sure enough, you can see that little intersection. This will negate having multiple bodies. It will actually make everything one body, which might be good for 3D printing. Not that you're going to 3D print this necessarily, but in other applications, if you want them all to be merged, it works really well. Even though 3D printing would typically, that coincident, will glue them together automatically. But anyhow, let's move through this. Now, let's go ahead and select the center point of that circle again and select your center line. Drag this down here below the center line. You could drag it up, either one is fine. Click to drop it, and let's make that 2.5. And that's the diameter. So if you want, you can put the diameter symbol in. So we know that the center, if we were to measure the center of the concentric ring, it's 2.5 inches. And then every single ring is going to be offset 2.5 inches from each one. So now you can hit escape, click on this circle, and now we're going to use linear sketch pattern. Now be aware, the x-axis, we should set that to 1 instance only. Go down to direction 2, which is the y-axis, and increase that to 4. And now set the spacing to 2.5. If you zoom out, you can see it goes all the way up to the top almost there. Now, one last thing, dimension Y spacing, just so it locks it in. If you don't dimension Y spacing, then it could adjust, or you could put in a dimension later on. But dimension Y spacing, great tool. Hit the green check. Now, let's go ahead and hit escape. Select that 2.5, that's a center line that you drew, because we're going to spin around it. Go to Features and Revolve Boss Base. Now remember, the first one is going to be 135, and then you're going to have to hit this checkbox, direction 2, and that's going to be 45. Hit Enter. Now, it may be coming out reversed, like here, I'll show you. If you flip this little arrow, it might look like that. Most likely you're getting what I'm getting, which is this right here, full 180 degrees of the concentric rings. And that's what we want. Make sure you got that. Hit the green check. And now we just go to mirror. The faces to mirror, you just select one of these little end faces. It doesn't matter, whichever one. And then go to bodies to mirror again. Select anywhere on the surface, hit the green check, and you're done. Okay, so that finishes the exercise. Now we're going to take a look at the 3D Sketcher. And the 3D Sketcher is a very nice tool. It's great for making tubing, wiring, an exhaust system, I suppose. And it's a little different, actually a lot different than the strategy that we saw with this. So let's now go to File, New. And oh, by the way, feel free to save this first. Go to Save it as E7 for your portfolio. Now go to File, New, and you, for this one, I don't have this in the actual training guide. This is something I've added, and I haven't added a chapter for it. But this is going to be one of the labs. So let's go to Part, hit OK. And what we do instead of the starting to sketch on a plane, we actually hit the little arrow under here and we go to 3D Sketch. Now take your line tool. Notice that some of the geometry is not available in the 3D Sketch. Over the years, they've added a couple new ones here and there, and they've enhanced it. They're always working on it, so it's quite a good tool. Let's move our pointer to the origin. Click. Now we could drag straight down. Now let's say we're making the back of the chair first, or at least one side, and then we're going to bring it forward, down, around. So I'm going to bring this down 2 inches. This is going to be a small chair. So approximately 2 inches right there. Click. Now I want to have it come forward because what we just drew is the side profile of the back of the chair. Now we need to have it go out for the seat. So here's the trick. And if you could remember this, 3D Sketcher is pretty easy. The Tab key, just hit one time, and it will flip it so it's now in the YZ. It's actually going in the Z direction. So bring that up about 2 inches. Again, get it as close as you can. Doesn't have to be perfect. Click. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to go straight down. I don't need to actually hit the tab key just yet because I still am able to go straight down 2 inches. And all these lines, by the way, will be 2 inches. Click. Now drag it across to the right. And again, we see we have to hit the tab key. So that will then change it to ZX. So it could go across to the right and make sure that's about 2 inches. Click. Now we want to drag it up. So hit the tab key again. 2 inches. Click. And we want to drag it back. Hit the tab key again. 2 inches. And notice, follow the lines of inference for horizontal, vertical. Click. Now we want to drag it up, and we're able to drag it up, so we don't really need to do much there. 2 inches. Click. And now you don't have to hit the tab key if you're going to tag the origin again. It will actually go across by default. So click. Hit escape. And I could have actually drawn the underside too, but I think you all will get the idea here. All right, now that we have this drawn out like such, now we could go ahead and put some fillets on here. So go to Sketch Fillet, and let's set them to 0.25 and select the corners. Oops. Hit the green check. If you rotate it, you could go, by the way, and go to Smart Dimension and dimension these things. And put in exact. You can spend the time if you want to make it look really nice. Like I said, I don't have a written lesson down for this, so it's up to you how you want to proceed with that. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we want to sweep along one of those entities. So since we no longer have a plane that's easily accessible, I'm going to show you a new way to create a plane. We're going to select the right plane. You see the right plane is right there on the side. And we're going to select, holding Control, a point. And now we could go over here to Features, Reference Geometry. Oh, you know what? Actually, let's hit Rebuild first. We want to exit that sketch. Sorry, hit Rebuild. Now you could go to Reference Geometry, Plane. And what we're going to do, if you hit the little arrow here next to the part, select the right plane, and then select that point. And what it will do, will offset a plane parallel to that point. So that's another method. That's 3 methods we've seen so far since we started this class. Last week we learned about on a curve, perpendicular to a curve, and the week before that we just learned about offset at a specific value. Now we can actually see another method here. Hit the green check. Now that you have that, click on that and start a sketch. Go to your circle tool, and at that origin, click and drag out a small circle. Yep, mine snapped. That's good. And let's dimension the diameter of that circle to, we'll just make it 0.125. You don't want to make it too big because the fillets are only a 1/4 inch. You make it too big, they'll intersect. All right, now we could go to Features, Swept Boss Base. And by the way, if it's supposed to be hollow, you could draw another smaller circle, like maybe 0.1 or something like that on the inside, and it will sweep and make it hollowed out. All right, select the circle and select the guide. Hit the green check, and we could click on this plane to hide it. And now that's how you use the 3D sketch tool. And so if anyone could tell me what the key on the keyboard is to flip the axes, I'll give you a second. Think about it. 1, 2, 3. The tab key. Just remember the tab key and you'll be in good shape. It's a pretty easy tool. All right, so moving along here, as far as the training guide goes, the lab for today is this smoke detector. So I'm going to rotate this counterclockwise. I downloaded it already, so remember, if you download it, once it's downloaded, you click on it, you could open it, you could use the rotate tool. When you're inside Chrome, I haven't found a rotate tool yet that's accessible without downloading it first. Okay, so here we have what's a smoke detector. We see a diameter, it's actually a thickness of 0.25 with a 0.1 thickness of that. We do have, let's see here, 2.5 inches for the diameter of the actual unit. We got a chamfer on here. There's some little details for that. Okay, and the chamfer is 0.1 by 45 degrees. So go to New, Part, and hit OK. And remember, this is where you might want to pause because I recommend you draw these on your own. These aren't terribly hard, but they're good. Just like doing puzzles all the time, you're going to get very good at them. So if you want to be a very strong modeler, try them on your own. And then if you get stuck, use the actual labs. Be aware I might not use all of the dimensions that are shown on there because I'm going through it very, very quickly. Also, those little mistakes and dimensions that I plug in whatever comes to mind, I could gauge when I grade your labs if you're relying too heavily on the actual videos versus trying to do them on your own. So anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and select the top plane, start sketch, and draw out the diameter of 2.5 inches. I'm going to go to Features, Extrude Boss Base, 0.25. We'll go ahead and put the chamfer on immediately. So underneath Fillet, go to Chamfer, and the chamfer was 0.1 by 45 degrees. Select that edge, hit the green check. Now we're going to go ahead and select this face, start a sketch, and I'm going to go to the top view. And let's take a look at that drawing here. And we could see this is centered, and the diameter is 0.75. So let's go ahead and get that aligned, draw that out, dimension it at 0.75. And now you could draw a center line from here to here to lock it down, or hold Control and select both centers and make them vertical, so the lines. And now we need to put a dimension in, and that's 0.625 to centers. So smart dimension from here to here, 0.625. And be aware, every once in a while I do, on the drawings, I'm not perfect. There might not be a dimension, or there might be a dimension missing. And in the old days, as I call it, when I first learned, I learned how to do things on the drafting board, believe it or not. Computers were just coming out. And so essentially, you would actually take a scale, and they call, you might have heard the term scale or ruler. They call it a scale for a reason because you can actually scale sizes. So whenever you see a drawing, you'd be able to calculate the scale, like, oh, that's 4 times that, or whatever, to get the actual amount. So you could go in and actually look at those dimensions and try to measure them with a ruler or scale and figure out what they are. So, and that's fine with me. There are a few that I know I've had people relay back to me, oh, you're missing this dimension. I'm like, well, just put in what you think fits best. And that's very common. I've almost never seen a perfect drawing. So just be aware when you're working with drawings, there's so many little details that can be missed. So, and anyhow, so let's go and extrude this. Go to Features, Extrude Boss Base. And from here, let's see what we're supposed to make that. It's a 0.1 for the height. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a fillet. Let's see what that fillet is called out on there. Let's see. Oh, 0.09. Select that edge. Hit the green check. Then there's a couple patterns on here we want to chisel out, but some of those we will handle after it's been shelled. So I think we're ready to shell, actually. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, we're ready to shell it. So flip it around, select the back face. Oh, it's not a bad idea to look for the typical wall. Well, the typical wall is 50 thousandths. All right, and so we go to shell. So 0.05, hit the green check. There it is. Now there is a little lip here, so select this face, start a sketch. Now you could draw the diameter, but I actually have an offset on there for a reason, because I want to show you how to use the offset entities tool. So go to offset entities, and the offset I believe is 0.02, and then it gets reversed. Let's just verify that with the drawing. You can see that over here. So it's actually 30 thousandths, 0.03. Hit the green check, and that depth goes 0.05, so right there. So go to features, extruded cut, 0.05. Hit the green check. All right, so we have that little lip there now. There's also a hole in the center here. Select this face, start a sketch. You could draw the through hole in. That's an easy one. And the dimension for that. Now you can see if you have dual screens how nice it is if you're able to put this on the second screen versus always having to go over it. Okay, that's 0.125. And through all. So features, extrude cut, through all. Let's put in those features. Now select this face, start a sketch, go to top there, and let's look at the details that we have. All right, we have the cutout starting over here on the right. That's because it's dimensioned here. Not that you couldn't start somewhere else, but we're looking at a 0.05 centered. See, 0.025 is indicating the center of it. So 0.05 by 0.1, which if it's a square would be tangent to the outside edge. So here's how to make that. Let's go ahead and put a center line in there. Not that you have to do this step. Now go to we'll use the center rectangle. Right about there. And let's bring it out a little bit like that. We'll dimension this. This is supposed to be 0.1. And this is supposed to be 0.05. And what I was talking about, where it says tangent, hit escape, select this line, and tangent to this arc right here. Oops. There. Got to get that orange edge and tangent. Now, here's something to call out. You'll see sometimes radiuses on the models look faceted, kind of like a diamond. And that's just graphical. That's the graphics card that you could adjust. Actually, not really the graphics card. It's just the graphics inside SolidWorks. Where you could set that up, if you go to the gear here, and if you go to performance, let's see, there it is. And right down here is image quality. Click on that. Now, here's the resolution. And look at this, you could drag. Now, if you drag it really low, it's faceted. Now, remember, if you have an assembly with thousands of parts and you want to rotate it, like if you're doing a demonstration, it's a very large assembly, set it low. You'll be able to rotate it much quicker because it's removing the polygons. And graphics cards are measured in how many polygons per second they can handle. We're talking millions of polygons per second now, whereas before it used to be like 1 million with old graphics cards from the 90s. So you can drag this all the way to the right there. And then this is wireframe, which we're not interested in right now. But if you get it in the red, it's just warning you like, hey, it might slow down your system a little bit, especially if you're doing it on a tablet, PC, or something like that. Anyway, let's go ahead and hit OK. Watch how the resolution here, I'll move this out of the way so you can see it. The resolution hopefully will sharpen a little bit. Hit OK. And there. It's not perfect. You can still see some facets, but we're zoomed up on a very small part. Okay, so we've made that tangent, and now go to Features, Extrude Cut. And this cut only goes up to a surface. and it's this surface right here. Hit the green check, and it gives us that interesting little feature. So select this side face. Now we're going to pattern it. Go to circular pattern, and now for the direction, you can select this inner ring here, and let's see how many we need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. So just reduce this to 8. Hit the green check, and there it is. All right, now we need to make those cutouts. Now this is actually really easy, but a lot of students think it's harder than it has to be. Select this face, start a sketch. We'll go to the top there. Now take we could do a center rectangle. And I believe the first one aligns. And you can have it stick out a little bit like that. That's fine. And let's see what we have to do on the drawing here. So that first one's centered, which is good. We already have that. It's 0.2 in width. And I do give you a 0.95 for a distance, which you could use if you want. Oh, and then it's offset 0.25 from there. So let's put those dimensions in. So from here to here. Oops. 0.25, and then this 0.2. We'll actually just make this 1 inch. I have like 0.95. It's unnecessary, actually. You'll see what it's going to do in a moment. And we could use the center line like we did before to lock in this to ensure that it's horizontal. So make sure that's horizontal. There we go. And it turns black, so it's fully defined. We could have control selected those 2 points as well. It's up to you. All right, now we just go to Features, Extrude Cut. And we'll cut that first one in there. So let's look at the depth. The depth of that cut. Oh, I actually have it here in parentheses, 0.06 dp. dp means depth. Now notice it makes that radius automatically, and that's where students are challenged. They don't realize it's automatic as long as you just extend it out. Now we just need to pattern that, so we select the feature, and these are spread out 0.15 by 45. Let's see, is that 0.15? Oh, actually 0.2. I have it too wide. So my mistake. So this is 0.15. All right, now we could select that, rebuild it actually just to be on the safe side. And we could go to linear pattern. And for the linear pattern, the direction, select this edge because it's a straight edge. And increase that to 0.2. And then increase the number to 4. Now look at this. See that little feature? It's extending out. Again, students have a tendency to panic a little bit there, but watch what it does. It actually creates that interesting feature, which looks like it was a lot harder than it really was to create. Okay, now for the text. Select this face here, start a sketch, go to the top. You could use a center line here for the text. And what did I put down there? I have Castello. You can put whatever you want. Go to the text tool, select the line, SolidWorks. And I'm going to go ahead and change that font and go with something maybe a little smaller, maybe 0.1. And then I'm going to go with, I'll try Comic Sans. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and hit the green check, Features, Extrude Boss. I'm going to make this 0.03 for the height. All right, now I'm going to do a little trick here, start a sketch. Not much of a trick. And we'll look at the ellipse tool. Click on ellipse and kind of center this around here. Click, drag out, and see it makes that ellipse. Now let's go ahead and get that center again. Follow it a little bit wider and then thinner on this end here. So make something that looks like that. And go to Features and Extrude Boss Base. Instead of 0.03, we'll have just go 0.02, so it goes a little bit below it to give it kind of an interesting looking logo there. Or lame, whatever. It doesn't look that great. And you can just have fun with that, put whatever you want, put your name on it. And I believe that finishes that off. Yeah, looks like we got everything. And that concludes exercise in Lab 7.